and welcome to Top Business Tech's first ever webinar. Today, we will discuss cybersecurity and the role AI plays in causing and preventing cybercrime. I'm Amber Donovan-Stevens, editor at Top Business Tech, and I'm thrilled today to be speaking with Jake Moore, cybersecurity specialist at ESET. As many of you know, the last 18 months has shown a drastic increase in cybercrime, and the challenges that face CTOs has, as a result, risen with it. In addition to this, IT specialists have had to contend with a dispersed workforce while taking on these challenges. Today, Jake is going to tell us a little bit more on how organizations can use AI to mitigate against cyber attacks. To introduce Jake, Jake is a cybersecurity specialist for ESET, an internet security company that offers unbiased cybersecurity support and advice to organizations. Prior to this, he worked for Dorset Police, spanning 14 years, where he primarily investigated computer crime in the digital forensics unit on offences ranging from fraud to murder. Within law enforcement powers, he learned how to retrieve digital evidence from all devices, whilst engaging in a variety of ways to ethically break security in order to help protect victims of cybercrime. When he became a cybersecurity consultant for the police, delivering advice to the public and local business in order to help protect the community and build upon their security foundations. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Jake, just to kick things off a little bit to start with, could you tell us a little bit about ESET and the work you're currently doing?
Okay, well, yeah, thanks for that introduction. So me and my role at ESET is to figure out the latest threats and bring them to life. So many people still have their heads firmly stuck in the sand or behind a massive rock in a cave thinking, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And so I like to bring that to life and show them that that might be through some fun social engineering technique or any way that I can possibly do something to make them realize. Once I've got their attention, I can then point them in the direction of ESET, which is its main focus is antivirus, but it offers all sorts of internet security. And at the core of that, we've got threat intelligence and AI steaming through the way to try and protect those businesses of all sizes.
So you said, of course, that a lot of companies have got, as you quite rightly said, their heads stuck in the sand a bit. Do you find that there are particular types of cybersecurity threats that companies are effectively ignoring and pretending doesn't exist?
It does always come down to the size of the company. So
okay.
You've got small businesses who just think they're not a target. Now, they're not necessarily thinking about what that target might be. They might have heard of phishing emails, of course, and they might have been told about two-factor authentication, but then they just don't think they're a target. So they don't go and put the resources in. And even if they do know about those resources, they think they're expensive. And so we still have that same old problem where companies think, I'm not going to spend the money because it won't be a problem to us. And then the bigger picture with the larger companies is that they might think they're actually secure. They offer training, but it's the culture that's missing. You may just find that your staff are a bit bored of hearing the same training, the same every year mundane training that just is a tick box exercise, which doesn't bring it to life. And so it doesn't always come down to what type of attack, it's just they are obviously occurring. And you need to up your security as a product, but then you need to change culture. And that's to do with awareness training, such as this, to make people really understand where those attacks might be coming from. And then if we question it, we might just protect ourselves in the future.
So are you saying that cybersecurity risks and threats are as likely to hit a small company as it is to hit a large company?
Yeah, they're ever evolving. And so those small companies are still going to always get hit. Notoriously, they're the worst affected because let's say, for example, a ransomware attack goes and hits a small business of, say, under 20 employees. They haven't really understood the backup process. Maybe they've had the backup just plugged in via a USB on a couple of hard drives, for example. And then that's been taken offline. And then they're realizing that they haven't got a business left. So they might even be considering paying the ransom, which is usually attributed to how much their turnover is. So they probably could afford it, but it would knock them back maybe a year or two. And so it just tends to attack all businesses in all directions. And so everyone needs to up their security, but to be aware of those ever-changing attacks. And I know what we're talking about today is going to be artificial intelligence. Well, that's just a huge curveball that we've seen in the power that they can deliver in these attacks. And that's what's knocking over the bigger companies as well, who maybe thought they were ready for the bigger attacks, but now they're really upping it. And if data is then stolen, you've then got the ICO then knocking on your door saying, hey, you do realize that you've just lost a load of data, we're going to come after you as well. And they love going after the big companies, of course. So they need to be upping their security and not just thinking it's never going to happen to us.
So would you say that they like to make an example of bigger companies, particularly when it comes to data leaks?
They do. And I've monitored lots of these breaches, and they might be a threat that they're going to have to spend the classic 2% of your turnover on these fines. But really what it comes down to is they might even let you off on the first occasion and say, look, we'll go for you on the second, or maybe even the third. That's not to say they will let them off completely, but it's just their way of upping the amount. Because I think before it was just a default maximum of $500,000, I think it was, where they would go and fine them. But this is a way of really trying to punish those companies with a threat that I do think is needed. But at the same time, we don't want to be knocking these companies out of business altogether, because that doesn't improve what they could be doing. So maybe they need to be turning those fines into better protection, maybe coming back to them a year later to say, look, what have you done? Maybe threaten them with something else. I don't know, but this is the difficulty. So the companies just need to realize that the threats aren't just via the fines in the ransoms, the fines from ICO, but it's also customer confidence. You lose data, you're going to potentially lose customers from really coming back to your business thinking, well, I can't trust them because they have lost so much of people's data before that ends up on the dark web. You hear the stories of identity theft and all sorts of other targeting attacks. And if it can be pinpointed back to that business which got hit.
And employees having training fatigue on cybersecurity awareness, would you say the same goes for smaller companies?
Yeah, so when I speak to smaller companies and I'll say, right, who's in charge of your cybersecurity as a whole, or who's in charge of maybe training staff at any level, they'll go, well, geez, we haven't got anyone that does that. They might have someone in finance who is able to do social media at the same time, who also has a hat of cybersecurity. This is just what happens with these smaller businesses. They wear too many hats, no fault of their own. They may be starting out. It's not such a necessity. It's seen as a bit of an insurance, cybersecurity. So when you're trying to give them that cybersecurity product, they might be thinking, is this really required in year 1 or year 2 even? Can we come and purchase in year 3 when we've got more money? Because right now we need to focus on search engine optimization, digital marketing, actually making money, selling the product or service. But if you don't have that security in place, you don't have a business. So it's getting that mindset. Now that is changing, I think. The old-fashioned way was, look, we've not had an attack before, we'll just keep on going and then see what happens. I suppose that the younger people are coming up through starting their own business do understand they need that extra level of security, but they might be missing other forms. So again, it's about them educating themselves to realize what their weaknesses are, depending on the size of the company, depending on the demographic of the company, really focusing in on doing exactly what they can. Now, phishing emails, I like phishing simulations, but only when they're done well. I think phishing simulations can have a double-edged sword attached to them. And so people might not know how to report a phishing email when it comes in. They shouldn't be chastised over clicking on a link and being made a bit of a scapegoat, saying, look at this person in HR, I can't believe he clicked on this obvious phishing email. And that person's going to feel terrible after that. So it really is making sure that the right level is taken. But smaller companies might not realize the scale of what those attacks are. For example, deepfakes are an amazing technology. Deepfakes are using fantastic machine learning. And as we go forward, let's say 10 years, we've got quantum computing coming around the corner. At some stage, it will be there. You throw that into what we've got with machine learning. A deep fake or a deep voice, even easier, could be used so perfectly to attack a business. And you will have people that have no idea this technology even exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they haven't had it in training. And then it can really take out someone's confidence in computing. Then they won't believe anything. Now, I'm saying, seeing isn't always believing, because I've seen some fantastic deep fakes. But I think we're going to see that locally, especially over the next 5 to 10 years. We just need to make people just aware that that is a threat vector.
So of course, you've talked about deepfakes and phishing. What other particular types of cybersecurity attacks have you seen grow, particularly in the last 18 months?
So I've seen data gathering being used with machine learning. The amount of power that it takes to just carve this information. Now, what I mean here is, I think there was one with Facebook recently. I think at the start of the year, Facebook had this, I can call it an attack, although some people might actually not even see it as an attack, because it was actually public information that was on Facebook. But what was particularly interesting with the Facebook one is it was connected to phone numbers. Now, phone numbers were able to be found. I can't remember the number, but they were carved out of public available data, and at a huge rate. So it was then connected, name, phone number. Now that's always a huge start for any cyber criminal. And you can go and create your own list by buying something on the dark web. But if it's brand new and it's only just occurred, then it's even more expensive. It's actually got a huge price attached to it. So they could be selling it, they could be using it. And that data was also connected to people's marital status. I think it was where some of them had locations of where they resided. So this is information, and information's always been key. It's always been worth a lot of money. It's even worth more to cyber criminals who are piecing together all of our information. And it's the machine learning part that I find interesting, how it can gather that info so quickly and right under the noses of these developers who probably didn't think that was going to be even a possibility. I could go on your Facebook and write it all down, and then go on someone else's Facebook and write down what is available. But of course, that's going to take me years. If you can automate that, boom, we've got other attacks that are possible. And it's the automation part that I find so fascinating. And again, part of my job is to work out what the next stage of that is going to be. And I can imagine the more data we're putting out there, the more automated it can get collected. So we need to be really focusing on reducing the amount of data that we give out.
I find it interesting that you said that you didn't it wasn't necessarily considered an attack because it was public information. But from the way you've phrased it, it sounds like you would still consider it an attack.
Absolutely. This is something that it's like being able to see someone in the street. You could physically go and sit down in a park and see everyone, right? But if you wanted to, you could write down all the data that you found. But if you were then to start to record that, you're crossing boundaries into privacy issues. Who was with who? You might have known a couple of people in your local town, then you put them all together. That's information. Now, at the very bare bones of it, it doesn't sound so much of an attack. You don't think of that being a privacy issue when you walk around your local town. People may see you, even with a mask on, they might still know who you are. But if we multiply this you start to realize that the illicit angle on this really changes. And that's why even Facebook said it wasn't an attack. I love their way of getting out of that was, no, this isn't an attack. This is public information. In my view, they were blaming their own users for putting that information on there. Double-edged sword that. Maybe we should think about what information we do put into the public domain.
True.
But when it's collated, and like I say, at such speed and such ease, with the help of machine learning, we've got something to worry about. Now, I think what people forget is what that can then be attached to. There's other data that's been maliciously, and I mean with malicious intent, stolen from other data leak and attacks. So what we're seeing more, and I'll come on to this in a bit more later, but about ransomware attacks, when they also steal the data and extort them. That data that's stolen can be attached. Now, especially with a phone number attached. Yeah. If you can then link that to their Facebook identity, you've then got other information that was stolen from maybe e-commerce site, which has got, say, the last 4 digits of their card, and then you've got their Facebook link. You can start doing very tailored targeted attacks, which again, Joe Public has no idea about. When they see the email that comes through, again, we're now going to phishing emails, but targeted ones, and that information comes in and it says, look, due to your card details ending in this number and your phone number, here it is, and your Facebook profile, here it is, and you clicked on our advert in your feed the other day, that makes someone think, I did do all that, and this is my information. Right, what do you want me to do? And then they are manipulating you into clicking a link, giving more information, now fill in the rest of your card details. Boom, they've just gone and wiped you out with just joining the dots. I think that's what cybercriminals are very good at, is putting all these pieces together. Imagine they've got one massive spreadsheet, and they just got loads and loads of columns and rows all on us, and they've just gone, oh, I was missing that piece, I'll slot it in there, and then they can go and commit the attack.
And of course, this is, for all intensive purposes, Facebook's responsibility, because if they're the ones giving out this information is getting stolen or collected, depending on how you'd look at it. And all of that information has been processed through Facebook. That is going to damage user trust in Facebook. So would you say Facebook has just as much responsibility to educate its customers and users as its own employees?
That's a good question. It's a funny one with Facebook, because if every time I heard of an issue with Facebook, someone said, is this going to damage it? A few years ago, I would have gone, yeah, that's the end of them. Yeah, they're not coming back from this. No chance. But
they're very resilient.
Although I read this week, I think TikTok's finally the #1 downloaded site. It's above Instagram, it's above Facebook. So maybe we are at that tipping point. We're at the edge of where the demise of Facebook, it's going the other way. But there is still a huge, huge fan base that loves Facebook, and whatever happens, maybe even if one day it came out that they're listening to us, I don't think they are, by the way, just for the record, but imagine it comes out in the future, 10 years time, that they were actually listening to us for targeted advertising. I still don't think it would hammer them. So then you've got to go for the employees and say, right, we need to protect our customers. But they're a company just like every other that's trying to make money, and security may feature less on their agenda. And if they're not thinking about security and thinking about money, then of course it's the advertising area that they're going to focus more of their resources on. So it then comes back to the user, and they've said, Facebook said, think about what data you're putting out on the internet. They've got a point there, we really do. But it's machine learning, artificially intelligent led, just scraping that internet data at such ease. It would be even difficult, I think, to put a huge halt to that. Yeah. And it's not just that one, there are loads. I think it's happening with LinkedIn as well, these scrapings, and it will continue. And lots of people do put public information out there because they want to get found.
So, and Of course, we've touched on Facebook. TikTok, of course, has come with its own set of data issues.
Yeah.
As we've moved into the hybrid working era, what about communication platforms like such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams? Is machine learning being used to collect data on these platforms?
Yeah, so Zoom and Teams have really had to, and very quickly, up their security due to the acceleration of home working due to COVID. So last year, we all remember those stories about Zoom wasn't encrypted, Zoom wasn't secure, Zoom bombing, all these wonderful phrases and issues that came with the fact that we are in this video working world, and we still are, obviously, right now. They had to up their game dramatically. And to a certain extent, I can take my hat off to them and think they did. But there are so many channels that we have our communications on. So it's clearly not just Zoom. There are other channels such as Slack, Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, text message. People are still using all sorts of different ways to share data. And a lot of that, I think we forget it's sensitive. So as soon as you're dealing with work, it is sensitive data. And lots of people will have simple WhatsApp groups because, where everyone's on WhatsApp, so you might as well have that WhatsApp group. I would recommend anyone to go and use Signal within a business organization. And then once you realize how easy Signal is, I'd then say, well, if you're going to have that chat with work, you may as well have it in your home life as well. It's very easy. It's privacy focused, encryption led, and you can set it to delete images and texts after a certain amount of time, which is vital for work purposes. And then it just helps people think about privacy and security. So they think, right, Signal, oh yeah, I use that because I should be safe. And we're not thinking about security when we get to our WhatsApp. We don't really know who's listening in to our text messages. They're not encrypted. They can be read, they can be intercepted. So I used to investigate all sorts of computer crime, and I used to work with the telecoms department. They used to get a list of the text messages that these people had been sending between each other. I think many of the companies would keep those text messages on their systems. So we just go and get a copy of their texts. It's not as easy as that now, but it just goes to show that we're not always thinking about our own security. So talking communications, we have to choose our platform wisely and not just assume if it's just me and you on the call that it's just me and you that is able to have that data.
And we've touched on all of the new arising communications platforms that have been on the rise. But of course, there is still at the heart of it email. And I believe it was a report from Proofpoint, which I read recently, covered that email is still the go-to target for cyber attackers. How would you advise that with all of these different platforms and emails, how would you advise that employees try and manage all of this? Because of course, even in the last 18 months, I know myself personally, I've had to learn to use many new different communications platforms and task management platforms in addition to classic email. So it can be quite overwhelming for employees. How would you advise that they go about protecting themselves with all of these different communications platforms that they might be using at any one time?
Yeah.
I know you touched on Signal.
So yeah, email does continue to be the vehicle of choice because we all have an email address. So we don't all have Signal, we don't all use WhatsApp, but everyone in business will have to use an email. And they're used to receiving emails from people that are external contacts. Someone might just come in with a request. I've tested this with people before, and if it's an interesting enough sounding request, there's more likelihood that people go and click on links or attachments just because they even thought it was dodgy and they go and click on it. And there have been people that have told me that, and I think that's en masse as well. Oh, I knew it was a bit dodgy, but I just wanted to see what it did. You know, that's wild. You should be reporting that, of course. So email is a very typical way to get in because it's what we're used to, it's what we're aware of. And it's about the intrigue. And if that's dealt with very manipulative wording. And that persuasion, those tactics of persuasion are wonderful. If you really take down a phishing email and really break it down into lots of different parts, you start to realize what type of psychology is used behind it. But what I love about machine learning is what they're doing. They're using algorithms to create these fake messages to look like real ones.
Yeah. And
it's not just the Nigerian prince anymore. I think we're well done with that. We're looking at very, very good fake ones. I love a good fake email because I must admit, I even take my hat off to them and think, wow, they've done a good
job.
Yeah.
I always fell for that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I really do err on the side of caution. It's a very simple thing to say. And that's probably my number one piece of advice, is just err on the side of caution. But that's difficult in most circumstances. So the fact that they'll try and steal user credentials, that's usually a red flag. So however much they're enticing you to do something, you want to be thinking, okay, it might not even matter that I click on a link. And that's true. If you go and click on a link, there is a good chance it won't have done anything. It's where it takes you, it tries to steal the credentials. So if it purports to be from Microsoft because of an issue, you're home working and you're thinking, I haven't seen my boss. I think you even said to me just before the call started, you had a job last year, you never met your boss, right?
Never. Right.
That to me is mind-blowing, but it's going to be a case for many, many millions of people out there. Maybe not millions, thousands. But those type of people are going to get this email. It purports to be from their boss. They don't know too much about the language used by them yet. They might not have really checked their spelling of their name yet. And so all these things where, I checked the email address, yeah, it looked right. It may have even jumped on the back of another thread. I mean, these kind of things. And it just said, click on this link. We're having Microsoft issues today. Takes you to another screen. You type in your credentials. It can then even get around the two-factor authentication because it says, right, can you just type in the code, which you do. And with these codes, these one-time passwords, they'll take 30 seconds, maybe a minute to activate. You're sending it to the scammer, and then they are then quickly on the other end, wherever they are in the world, remoting back into your account. And they've got around the two-factor authentication because you've given it away.
Yeah.
They've then got huge access. This is a massive, massive worry. To advise people against that, it's very difficult because even if you say to them, look, just don't go and click on it. But if you do, make sure you really don't give away your credentials. But by that time, they've invested their mindset into thinking that it is genuine. And so when they do go and type it in, they're going, no, I've done my due diligence already. It definitely is.
That's enough. Yeah.
And I'll just do this because I need to get on with my work today. That's the moment it all goes wrong.
So do you think also that work pressures can weaken cybersecurity awareness of employees?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a jump, but...
to a certain extent, yeah. I don't know if it's particularly work pressures, but it could be anything. Now, anyone's got a weakness, okay? We've all got weaknesses. I have, you have. Mine's probably donuts. There you go. I've said that on the internet. If someone sends me an email saying 20% off donuts, I'm going to be there thinking, yeah, it's okay. I'm not going to click on it, but it's got my attention. There you go.
And mine too.
Everyone's got something that will make them just go a double take. And that is, you multiply that, you're going to find the easy ones like Netflix, the post office. Now we're really honing in on something that most people are going to have maybe an account with or are used to having something there. And so therefore, they'll be more susceptible to it. Yeah. The pressure might be associated with time. You must get this done before you get that done. And that's the psychology again used in those emails. This is more targeted, but I've tested targeted emails. They do work a lot better with maybe a carrot being dangled or that speed, that fear. And those are the types of things. So the pressures come in all different sizes, but yeah, we've only got so many hours in the day for work. And so it's added to that pressure.
I find it really interesting that you said particularly about it being a carrot and it being things, or in our case, a donut. And I can't remember which company it was now, but they sent out a fake email to all of its employees, and I think it was offering a pay rise or a bonus.
Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah. So of course, understandably, I think I definitely would have fallen for that. A lot of employees signed in, gave their data away, and then were, of course, chastised for falling for it.
Yeah.
And while I appreciate this is a good way to begin to educate employees, of course, there's a lot of ethical issues that come into it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said earlier, I'm not a fan of them doing this in the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think by maybe sending out a message to say, maybe this is a fraudulent email, but try and find out why. It's not going to make people feel victimized, because as soon as you victimize them and go, you idiot, you clicked on that, what
they'll shut down.
Thinking, trust issues are gone. They're going to start looking for other jobs and go, okay, they might feel stupid. You don't want people to feel that. And then they've got to carry on with their work for the company that has just caught them out. And so I totally get it that it was, when it came out, I even thought, wow, this is going to stop phishing emails because everyone's going to get educated. And then, I mean, you're talking 10 years ago, so I probably saw this being to start. I changed my mind on it because I thought, right, it doesn't actually have the same effect. So by offering a pay rise from the company, now there's a good chance that many people will fall for that because they are expecting it. Now, their argument was, well, that's exactly the point. Those criminals, those fraudsters are going to use that to get you in. But that just isn't the way you go and educate people. You've got to do it in a far more open environment and make people realize this.
And particularly, as you said, but without making employees feel stupid, because everything has evolved. These attacks are far more sophisticated than they've ever been. And it's not fair to punish an employee that most likely has very limited education. Yeah,
I've even heard of people losing their job once they've been hit twice with clicking on a phishing link. We are humans, we're going to make mistakes. I'm sure many people, maybe you or I, we've clicked on phishing links without realizing at the time. And it's only maybe after you've thought, oh yeah. The next level, maybe giving away some serious sensitive information is something to reconsider. But by making people just click on a link and then telling them off for it, that can make them feel so stupid. You'd probably see them looking for other jobs. Yeah,
and that's the thing. The moment you call someone stupid, they're going to be, well, they then won't think that they'll be able to learn.
Yeah.
So, given this, what would you advise? How would you advise going about educating employees?
So, education can be done in a variety of ways. But it's difficult, and I get this, to educate in a fun way. So it should never take too long, because people don't generally want to do training. I've been there. We have training once a year, and sometimes I look at it and go, how long is this one? Oh geez, an hour and 45 minutes. When am I going to do that? You put it off, and then you get told off for not doing it. So you want to make it short and snappy, and then quizzes. It sounds really really annoying, but they can be good. I've seen some good ones out there that are interesting, but it's about that short time. It's just throwing it in there. Look, it's 10-15 minutes, do it every so often, get people to discuss it. So we are missing that being at home. I miss that classic water cooler moment where you discuss a fraudulent email. But then bringing it back to machine learning, I think we've got a lot of help from machine learning and artificial intelligence. If we're there yet, it's able to automate any anomalies, and it detects them. So we are able to use security products in creating that detection. It might look for those differences from a genuine email to a real one. Now, they've been input by humans, so therefore it can be bypassed at some stage. It's not a one size fits all. It's not a silver bullet where people hope that, oh, if I just implement this, all my problems go away. Of course, it evolves, but it evolves both sides. And that's why I think it's a good this interesting fight between machine learning, good and bad. I even wrote a blog on this because you've got the evil side, which we're being told it's going to take every company down, but we've also got the white hat hacking machine learning side, which is going, you know what? You can leave a lot of this up to me. It's automation, spam filters, botnet detection, antivirus, which we use it a lot in the makeup of our antivirus, vulnerability management. All these things can be done at such speed to attack it, and that shouldn't ever be forgotten about.
No.
Those are absolutely required, because if you don't have it, then the evil side of machine learning will overtake what is out there to counter argument it.
Great. So, and of course, just as we begin to wrap up, I'm aware that we're coming to time.
Okay.
How do you see, and I'm particularly interested in how you see the role of the good white hat AI. How do you see its role in the future as things continue to evolve?
Well, it's only going to get better and more powerful. I think we're on that tipping point where it's going to exponentially increase in power. I can see people haven't really invested in it over the last few years because it hasn't been of a quality we would have liked. I mean, if you look at driverless cars, for example, bit of a joke, really. You know, it's a bit of a pipe dream, but it's not to say it's never going to happen. Of course, one day it will. We're only going one way with tech. It's going the right way, but we're in the immature phase of AI, and mistakes will be made. I think we really need to think about learning from those mistakes, trying to take out bias. I read so much about AI bias because it's been input by humans that might be racist, sexist, or whatever, and they're inputting their bias into this product,
even when it's unconscious, without even realizing.
That's right. And then you're saying, I don't know, it wasn't me, it was the computer. Computers are made by humans, and so they're just an extension of our human brain. So we really need to hone in on where those mistakes are, but it will take off. And of course, with good comes bad, like I alluded to earlier. And those attacks are just going to be more ferocious, more automated, but you've got it both sides. So exponentially, AI, of course, is on the increase. We're going to see it. We just need to be prepared for it and up our security products in favor of protecting us.
And making sure, from what you've said, from what I understand, and making sure that we never entirely leave it to its own devices, to always make sure that we're keeping it updated, that we're making sure that there is...
You never know, Terminator might be around the corner. If we leave it to itself, we might never be around. No, I joke. But we really need to keep on top of it. It's not just hey, I can kick back. You've all heard companies that just sit back and think, hey, I'm secure now. Continually patch, continually update every time they say it. Do it at the earliest convenience immediately.
That's great. I think that's a fantastic note to end on. Jake, thank you so much for your time today. It has been an absolute pleasure to everybody listening. I hope it's been as educational for all of you as it has been for me. I'd also like to take time to thank Luke Conrad and Lucy Rowley, who are our technicians who are working behind the scenes today. We will be having 3 more events this year, and I promise they will be as juicy as this one is. So if you are interested in signing up at all, you can sign up via www.tbtech.co/events. Thank you everybody so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
See ya.